I'm talking to people that are obviously on the left. I'm talking to people that are more on the right, more on the conservative side, and I've basically decided to stop using. I mean, it's really difficult to talk about feminism when one week you talk to a guest that has a completely different definition of feminism, and then you have a guest that has a completely different definition as well. And to me, I decided to just use the textbook definition, which is gender equality, like equality between that, for example.
That was never the basis. Feminism has never been anything, right from Mary Wollstonecraft in England. Feminism has never been anything to do with equality. It's always been about further pushing female advantage at the expense of male. It's always been about despising males. All of it. Wollstonecraft didn't understand that the laws in England to do with custody and parenting and divorce, etc., were all set up expressly in the interests of females to ensure that no male could ever evade his responsibility. She was an upper class twit, so with property, so she was in a minuscule proportion of women where this didn't help in the same way it did for most women, and she failed to understand that. Same with the suffragettes and the vote; they didn't understand the democratic deficit. Or with males, even in the First World War, half of the males fighting the First World War hadn't got the vote, and it was at that point the vote at national level was all about imperial things, which all involved males. Female interests were all catered for at the local level, with either the parish or the church, where women from time immemorial have always had this vote on the same basis as men. So again, feminism is persistently always misunderstood. It's always read into things because a tiny minority of women might not have been benefited by the rules as they were set up at the time. The vast majority of women were benefited at the expense of men. So feminism has always been about pushing still further what was already female disadvantage and capitalizing
You
on
mean advantage?
on a sorry.
You meant to say advantage, female advantage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No worries. My viewers are gonna love you, by the way.
But I'm not an incel. I don't support incel ideology, and I'm not. I don't have an ideology
Don't worry,
at all.
we're gonna get there.
We're gonna left or right.
I really want to hear you speak on incels as well. You might even be a bigger enemy to black pillars than a blue pilled liberal like me. We're gonna find out. But first, just on that note,
enemy of incels.
We're gonna see. We're gonna find out. So just on that feminism point, I just would like to. I mean, you're saying that feminism is not about gender equality, but and then you say because feminism has always been about taking power away from men and giving it to women, basically, or taking stuff from men and giving it to women, like I don't know, rights and money. But that's not a contradiction at all to what I'm saying, because if you assume, I mean, we can talk about that. It's not set in stone, but if you presume that women have been in a disadvantageous situation before, then and you want to have gender equality, then the only way to do that would be to take away from men and give it to women, right? In every sense.
Women have never been in. Women have never been.
That's okay, but that's
complete myth.
Yeah, okay, that might be like that's another topic of discussion. But I mean, when I say feminism means gender equality,
no, it doesn't.
But that's how I use the term, and then you say, okay, practically it's not that, right? That's what you mean. Like you mean when you say no, it isn't. Then what you actually mean is
I'm saying its origin, its development, its manifestation, everything about it is nothing to do with that. The main thrust of,
but you know that's the definition, right?
The main thrust of,
even if it's a lie,
it's a complete lie. Yeah.
Okay.
The main root of feminism.
Yeah.
The main root of feminism. If you forget Wollstonecraft and the suffragettes, the main root of contemporary feminism, which now dates back a century, is Central European Marxist thinkers in the late 20s, early 30s, who couldn't understand why the Western working class weren't revolting, whereas the peasants in Russia did, totally against Marxist theory. So they posited there's something wrong with Western working class. They must be repressed by capitalism. Complete baloney, you know. and therefore,
Wait, but you just say that.
men are the
You
problem.
just say complete baloney, but we don't know that.
It is
Like,
baloney.
I don't know that.
Well, it
Wait,
is. It's
wait.
complete bunkum.
You're going. What I'm just trying to say is that no matter what the facts of the matter are, I'm using the textbook definition, and in some situations that might be a positive thing for feminism. But for example, if you call yourself a men's rights activist, you should also be in favor of to a certain. I mean, you are right now in the opinion that men are in a disadvantageous position, right?
Men in all points of history, in all cultures,
All right.
the great majority of men are disadvantaged vis-a-vis everybody else.
Okay, so then you're
against all women and a minority of high-status men, and that will never change.
That means that your agenda is to take away from women and give it to men, right?
No.
Why not? But that must be the case.
Well, what?
If there is a power inequality, and that power inequality is to the disadvantage of men and to the advantage of women, in order to revert that, you have to take from women and give it to men.
Completely false. Completely
how
false.
is that false?
Because there is no power interaction of any kind between the sexes. Each sex is self-contained in that
Child
regard.
custody?
There's no
marriage court?
But there's no power.
That's your examples. Sorry.
Yeah. There's also obviously anomalies that go on, but you're never going to get a situation where you haven't got sociality predicated on the whole idea, the whole biological basis of you have to restrict male sexual access. This is why you have a male dominance hierarchy, why you don't have a female dominance hierarchy. Dominance hierarchy is 100% male. There's no such thing as intersexual dominance or female dominance. It's all male. So majority of males necessarily lower status, they are disadvantaged vis-a-vis high status males. That's the thing, right?
Majority
Females
of men are at a disadvantage.
Disadvantage, yeah. With females, of course, you got the situation where ostensibly they're all equal, but of course they're right from the schoolyard. They're arranged in cliques, and you have the top clique, usually dubbed the populace, with its queen bee, and that's based in biology.
Sorry, I didn't understand what you said before. I was just stuck there. I couldn't listen. You said the majority of men are in a disadvantage to other men.
Yeah, to high status males.
So, and you want to change that?
You can't change it. It's basic biology.
When you say woman, you said before that women are in an advantageous position. What do you mean when you say that?
I mean that they are not disadvantaged in the way that males are disadvantaged. This is not between the sexes. Disadvantage is always within sex. Women have their own version of disadvantage because of their sociality of cliques, which you see from the playground onwards. And you've got various cliques. You've got a top clique, often dubbed the populace, with its queen bee. She's like a first among equals, not an alpha female. But all that's to do with, if you read my papers, that's all to do with the biology of facultative reproductive suppression in times when you've got massive scarcity of resources. So the idea is that you control society so that only the alpha male and the queen bee actually get to produce offspring. So that means you only utilize a minimum amount of resources, and you reproductive suppress, or everybody self-suppress actually their own reproduction. So in that way, obviously females, not queen bees or in the top clique, or queen bees of lower cliques, they are disadvantaged because they will be either by the queen bees or themselves relatively or absolutely reproductively suppressed. So that's obviously a disadvantage. That's something completely within female sociality, completely separate to male sociality. So the idea that you take from one sex to give to the other to redress power imbalance is complete nonsense. Silence.
Yeah, because I'm completely shocked.
You've not read my papers.
I heard you say that before. I mean, I heard you say that before. I've read your one paper, but it's really also difficult to read. It's a hard read, to be honest.
Yes, if you are struggling, Obviously, with English not as a first language,
Yeah.
a lot of English people say my stuff's hard to read.
Yeah.
My
I mean,
defense
I
of that
read
is
I read many
I have
papers
to,
on the topic. Sorry.
I have to, I have to write quite tightly, otherwise you way over exceed the word limit, and you can't get the thing published. So it has to be quite condensed in writing. That's why it's a hard read. Also, it's to do with precision. If you write in shorter sentences, and you actually lose focus in meaning, and you actually have difficulty communicating the meaning as
I
well. So
have
there's two
I
things
have
going on.
I now realize that it's not even the papers. Like, I had difficulties understanding what you're saying when I was reading the papers, but now, even talking to you, I have difficulties understanding how you see the world, because you're basically saying there is no possibility. Like, men's rights activists say that the men are at a disadvantage vis-a-vis women. Feminists say the complete opposite, and you are basically saying they're not even in a competition with each other. But then they would say, like, both of them, like both feminists and MRAs would say, what about men doing all the shitty jobs? What about gender pay gap?
Yeah.
And what about there is so many reasons to compare these two. And
Yeah, but they're nearly all the gender pay gap's a total
no,
failure.
let's forget about the feminist side. You're not going to agree with those, but what about the MRA side? Like, apparently you don't even agree with those, because you say that there can't be any power imbalance between men and women. Is that what you're saying? There is no hierarchy between men and women?
There isn't, but that doesn't mean to say
My
that there aren't.
incels would disagree.
Sorry. Let me give an example here.
Yeah.
But there are situations within the institutions whereby men clearly are oppressed by the institution. The classic case, obviously, is men particularly complaining about, is child custody and divorce. You know, in the divorce courts with divorce proceedings and custody. That clearly is stacked, deliberately stacked against men.
I thought there is no such thing. In that case,
no, there is institutions because of their understanding, their false understanding about power relations. They think it's their job to do down men to restore some mythical power imbalance.
okay.
And on that basis, they then stop males getting shared parenting custody of their children, and make all sorts of ridiculous impositions in divorce. So you can clearly point to men being disadvantaged in that way. That's not because of any deep-rooted.
Vis-a-vis who?
Sorry?
Vis-a-vis who? Disadvantage vis-a-vis who? Vis-a-vis women, right? So it is possible.
And lots of yes, but that's an anomaly to do with institutions. It's not directly from power imbalance between men and women per se. That's because institutions have actually misunderstood what's going on.
Okay.
And they're saying, men
okay, so now we're back. Now we're back on track.
And therefore,
now we're back on track. So
I'm not dismissing what. Let me finish. I'm not dismissing these. There are many examples which I'd certainly support that MRIs point to where there are ridiculous impositions on men, but they're not because of power imbalances between the sexes. They're because of ridiculous measures taken by institutions that totally fail to understand basic human nature and the sexes.
No one is saying that. Neither MRAs nor feminists are saying that this is just falling out of the sky. Obviously, they're also saying that this is institutions that are reinforcing this, that it's to a certain extent culture. But why we are even talking about this is that you were saying that it is basically. I said that in order to create gender equality, you have to take from one sex and give it to the other. From one gender and give it to the other. In that case, it would be right. Like, in that case, you would have to take power from women in the women's court system.
What? No, you don't.
Why?
If you look at divorce and custody, you know the head. What the court's supposed to do is generally institute shared parenting, shared custody. They're not. They're not following their own guidelines because they're in the best interest of the child. Everybody knows what they really mean is the best interest of the female, because they're all stupid feminists. Right now, to get fairness to men in the divorce court does not mean taking anything away from women. It means treating men and women equally.
Now, for currently, if we go to, let's just take as an example the worst family court in the world, and you go there, and basically the woman can decide everything, let's say, and in that case, you say, okay, now you can't decide anything. Now it's going to be equal 50-50, the decision power.
Well,
You're effectively taking away power from her. That's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah, but you didn't. It wasn't power given to her in the first place.
It was
the institutions.
Yeah, it doesn't matter,
No,
but it was there.
No.
She had the power.
No, you're misunderstanding. It's not individual females who've got the power in the courts. It's the authorities who have the power to impose their bizarre ideology on
But
ordinary people.
that doesn't
It's like
matter.
trans people. So let me explain. Ordinary trans individuals do not at all ascribe to trans ideology. They object all the time. All these idiots, these wannabe elites, are imposing this dumb ideology on us and using us as pawns in their game. We don't want any of this shit. And that's the situation with women in divorce courts. So all you need to do is make sure. So you have a starting point that you assume that obviously the historical and the cultural and the biological background that women is the main caregiver. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of cases where the majority of parenting is done by the female. But you can start off with a presumption of 50-50 and then adjust it according to the circumstances. And likewise, in terms of all the reparations to either party after a dissolution of a marriage. And again, you don't start with anything a priori other than a 50-50 split. Then you look at, well, actually, the guy's actually worked all his life and supported this woman. She hasn't to do anything. Therefore, why give women 50-50? You can look at those individual arguments according to the case in point. But that's nothing to do with taking power from one sex and giving it to. It's just stopping the authorities imposing ridiculous extreme ideology and using ordinary people as their pawns.